Scrimmage 2 has come and gone. The offense responds, but without a very key player. More on that and a great conversation coming up here on today, a Friday's Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I am your host, Eric Kane. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch each and every single day. Shout out everydayers for making the show exactly what it is each and every day. And to continue to tell your friends, let's grow this show and let's get in front of more and more Tennessee fans. Big shout out to FanDuel for being a part of today's show. Go to FanDuel.com to make every moment more. That is over at FanDuel.com. We got a lot of scrimmage takeaways, some scrimmage notes to get into here in segment number 1, and then a lengthy two-part conversation in segments 2 and 3 with JD PicKell of the Hard Count over at On3 Sports. A lot to get into on Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava, the schedule, some of his favorite players around the SEC, all that and more is coming up here in today's show on a Friday. All right, so what do we hear? Of course, media did not get to see any of the scrimmage, but what did we hear? What were some of the bigger takeaways from Tennessee scrimmage on a Thursday morning? First big takeaway, Nico Iamaleava did not play. Reportedly woke up, according to some sources to VolQuest, woke up, a little sick on a Thursday morning and just had the stomach bug. Didn't practice. He's human too, right? He is not injured. It is okay. Do not freak out. No conspiracy theorist here. He was sick Thursday morning, so he didn't scrimmage. There's no quarterback competition. Sure, you'd love for him to be out there, but at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal, in my opinion. So Nico did not play. What that meant was Gaston Moore and Jake Merklinger got a lot of reps, more reps than they're accustomed to, and that's good. You hope nothing ever happens to Nico. Don't get me wrong. You hope nothing ever happens to Nico, but football is a contact sport, and so if something were to happen to Nico for an extended period of time, both of those guys would play. I don't think they would go with just one Gaston or one Jake. I think both of those guys would play. So, getting those guys some more and more experience, I think is never a bad thing. The offense responded. The offense took care of the football. I don't believe there were any takeaways. I'm not 100% sure, but I talked to some people who were in attendance that said, hey, the offense responded despite Nico not being out there. Offense looked more in rhythm. Offense looked good. So, whoa, Nico got something to work. No, I'm just kidding. Nico's going to be just fine. I think a lot of that had to do with Lance Hurd scrimmaged in this football game. Andre Carrick made an appearance in this, this scrimmage. Brew McCoy, who I am absolutely shocked Brew McCoy scrimmaged, but Brew McCoy apparently scrimmaged. He could scrimmage. He's fine. But I thought that the first time he would get hit would be against UTC. But Brew McCoy's out there, and finally, I guess he won out in that argument trying to get on the football field where the trainers and the coaches were trying to keep him off. Dude's a competitor. He didn't want to miss any time. And so Brew McCoy scrimmaged in this football game. So my point is, I don't believe John Campbell did, or I'm not sure if John Campbell did. I just heard Lance Hurd and Andre Carrick and Brew made some returns at the field. Dante Thornton practiced for Tennessee. Mike Matthews practiced for Tennessee. Dante Thornton caught a 60-yard touchdown pass from Gaston Moore. Dante Thornton apparently had the best day of any wide receiver. And that's really, really good because, again, he was turning the corner last year. And I was talking to JD PicKell off air, not in our conversation you're about to hear. We've talked many, many times about Dante Thornton. I was all in last year on Dante Thornton. Obviously, it did not turn out the way that we thought it would last year. But he turned the corner a little bit towards the end of last year. In spring, he was the best player on the field. And then in fall camp, he's been banged up a little bit, kind of eased his way back into action. So to see him, to hear that he had a really, really good day, that's awesome because I feel like that he's a guy that's going to make a lot of plays for Tennessee this year. But he had a really, really strong day. So heard that DeShawn Bishop was actually mentioned by name from Josh Heupel. Shout out to Adam Sparks of Knox News for flat out just saying Josh Heupel does not like to give anything away, and it's a game sometimes, but there's nothing wrong with praising who played well in a scrimmage. So Adam Sparks literally said, will you please name some offensive skill players who played well in the scrimmage today? and Josh Heupel, he mentioned DeShawn Bishop. He mentioned Peyton Lewis, said that they did a really good job running at the running back spot. Wide receivers, he mentioned Dante Thornton played extremely well. Said Squirrel White played well. He thought the tight end group as a whole, all three of those guys played extremely well today. So he mentioned a couple of those skill players who played well. So Dante Thornton was mentioned a couple of times. Squirrel White, DeShawn Bishop continues to have a strong camp, and I'll have an article about him over at On3 at some point here today on a Friday. But he met with the media a couple of days ago. He's a young guy. I think I spoke about this on yesterday's show. He's going to play a lot of football for Tennessee. In fact, I think to start the season, he's going to be RB2 behind Dylan Sampson. So really, really rooting for him, and he's, again, had a really strong fall camp. So that's good to hear. So it sounds like the offense overall, had a clean, was crisp. Welcome back some of those guys that we were talking about yesterday that needed to, perform and needed to show back up. And it sounded like the offense looked more like a Tennessee offense. Heard the receivers had a really, really good day. So those were all some great things. Think Gaston more and both Jake Merklinger, but Gaston more specifically, think that he managed the scrimmage very, very well and threw the ball where he needed to, made the right checks, and that's exactly what you want in a fifth-year guy. Defensively, it's not the defense played bad, absolutely. I think the defense flashed at certain spots. I think Joshua Josephs is a name that I heard a couple of times. Arian Carter at linebacker, who didn't play in the first scrimmage, he flashed a couple of times. Heard Jeremiah Thielander made some plays. I heard that Boo Carter and Christian Harrison played a lot of the star position and were rotating a lot. So, again, even if Boo Carter's not at their snap number one, Boo Carter's going to play a ton of star for this football team as a true freshman. So I think that's important to remember. Didn't hear much about the safeties, I got to be honest with you. Didn't hear much about Will Brooks or Jacoby Thomas or John Slaughter battling for that safety spot, aside from opposite of Andre Turrentine. But those are some of the notes that I heard about the linebackers. Let's see here. Yeah, Keenan Peely was held out of the scrimmage. I assumed that he would be. Ricky Gibson did not scrimmage. As we mentioned on yesterday's show, got a little bit of a sore hamstring. Jordan Matthews and Jalen McMurray were those cornerbacks who are rotating in opposite of Jamal McCoy. And so, yeah, I didn't hear much about the defense, I'm going to be honest with you, but I heard that the offense looked better. So that's what you want to hear. I mean, you heard a lot about the defense in scrimmage number 1, heard a lot about the offense in scrimmage number 2. Those are your 2 scrimmages. You go into a mock game week next week, and then the next week it is game week. So that's really, really good stuff to hear. So Tennessee's just rolling right along in fall camp. Scrimmage 2 is out of the way. No more scrimmages. There'll be a little bit more of 11-on-11 work, but they're going to start transitioning into game week type situations here next week and, of course, the week after that. So not a whole lot of notes. Sorry, guys, I wasn't there. Can only go on what people send to you and people hear and tell you. I did hear from someone that was there. They did a lot of special teams, and Jackson Ross is going to be a weapon. And I responded, well, buddy, that's not going to move the needle on my show. But I did want to point out that Jackson Ross apparently had a really, really good day. Quote, he was passing to the gunners down the field with his right leg and left leg, meaning he was punting the ball and the gunners are going and catching it in midair. That means a lot of hang time. So that's awesome, especially when you're doing traditional style, rugby style, all that type of stuff with both legs. So Jackson Ross apparently had a really, really good day. So anyway, when we come back, we'll start with part 1 of my conversation with J.D. PicKell. He's a personality over at On3 Sports, doing an awesome job, and ask him a little bit about everything. But we'll focus on we'll start looking at Tennessee's schedule and his overall thoughts, big picture thoughts on what he thinks about the Tennessee Volunteers when we come back right here on Locked On Vols. What to say about our friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook? I love sports. Summer months, the sports sometimes are not sporting like I want them to, but over at FanDuel Sportsbook, they keep the sports going whenever I want because I can dream my bets all summer long. And here to end the summer months, here to end August, a daily boost or a bonus to all customers over at FanDuel Sportsbook. So you can get on there, dream up a daily boost, a daily bonus, all August long. Not just new customers, not just existing customers, but every single customer over at FanDuel Sportsbook. You can make the most out of summer. Did you know that FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook? Did you know that FanDuel Sportsbook is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball? You can make every moment more over at FanDuel Sportsbook. So go check it out today as the summer months continue. Also want to give another shout out to our friends over at Home Field Apparel. Home Field Apparel is the exclusive apparel sponsor of Locked On Vols. Football season is nearly here. We can almost smell it in the air. And if you're heading on out to Neyland Stadium this fall, be sure to be decked out in style thanks to Home Field Apparel. We can't miss Kickoff 2024 campaign where you can get football boxes, coaches jackets, bomber jackets, and so much more. These football boxes contains 3 never-before-seen items for the University of Tennessee that are not available anywhere else. Curated so fans have new gear to wear all season long, suitable for all weather conditions. Platinum Box VIPs, they're going to receive exclusive items such as a new hat or ringer for Platinum VIPs only, a VIP koozie. The 2024 Platinum Pass guarantees 20% off early access to Tennessee football releases throughout the 2024 season. So no more missing out on Home Field Apparel because it's sold out. This is available starting August the 9th. So it's still available right now here on the 16th. And you do not want to miss out because they will sell out. Home Field is the premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis. Their focus is creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel of vintage college designs. They have excellent stuff in terms of what they have in stock for Tennessee. There's a wide range of available colleges, 180 plus and growing for customers to choose from. All you have to do is go to homefieldapparel.com to get started today. That is homefieldapparel.com to get started today. All right, got JD PicKell on here with us here on a Friday. Man, we just right around the corner. I think this next week is the last week before we truly have some football games. Is that right?
Yeah, man, what we've been saying on our show is like whatever your week 1 routine is, you have 1 week to figure it out. Like you got week 0 to get a good rep, figure out what you're doing Saturday mornings. But come week 1, like the main thing is the main thing. Do what you do, and we're off to the races, man. But I appreciate you having me on. It's great to actually have college football to talk about.
Yeah, no doubt. Of course, if you guys don't know who JD is or not familiar with JD PicKell's work, he hosts the Hard Count on 3 on the YouTube channel. Are you back to every day now, or are you still Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday?
So we'll go live 3 times a week, but I mean, there's, you know how it is. There's always something to talk about, even if we're not live on the air. Like for us, Will Howard just got named the starting quarterback at Ohio State. So we're like, hey, we finished the live show, but like, let's actually go do a segment on that. So content every day, but live 3 times a week, year round.
Yep, one of the fastest growing media personalities from a national perspective in college football. So give him a follow on Twitter and follow all of his work over on the Hard Count at JD PicKell on the X. All right, JD, man, I know you're really high on Tennessee. I've seen a lot of the stuff you put out over the offseason. I know you're high on Nico. I believe Tennessee was one of your 12 college football playoff teams. Yep. Kind of summarize where you are on Tennessee heading into this new football season.
It's funny. You and I were talking on the phone the other day. And the phrase that I feel like I'm using right now when I talk about Tennessee and try and project where they're going to be at the end of the season is football math. Like football math is kind of a slippery slope and is not always 100% the tightest math in the world. But for me, I'm like, okay, the offense, again, on paper, using football math, should be a lot closer to 2022 where Hendon Hooker lit up college football than what we saw last year from that Vols offense. Okay, so that's one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is the defense. The defensive line, you and I were talking yesterday, should be really freaking good. Secondary, we'll see. There's some things left that we just have to see happen in the fall, and that's like, just the way that this whole thing works. But feel like the defense will be closer to 2023 than it was in 2022. So the football math for me is like offense should be really good. Defense should be good enough. Like I think Tennessee's a 10-win football team. I think 10-2 in the SEC punches you a ticket to the dance, which is wild to say out loud that we're talking about the college football playoff now being like a full-on tournament, but it is where we are, and that's how I feel about the Vols this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, I love the expanded playoffs. There's been many years where you knew that, 4 teams got in the playoffs, but not all 4 of these teams would have a chance of winning it. So I recognize that, but I mean, I'm a football guy. More football, more storylines. I mean, I'm all for it, right? But it just opens up this offseason conversation to where, with the SEC, it's now 16 teams. you split that sucker in half, and the top 8 teams are truly in the conversation. They won't all make it, obviously.
Yeah.
But those teams from all the way from Georgia at the top to Tennessee, Oklahoma there at 7 or 8, all in the conversation made the college football playoff. So for people like you and me, man, I mean, it's kind of gone to an NFL model to where there are no off days in the offseason. I mean, there's always something to talk about, and it just gets us, that much more excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you said about the SEC and how many teams they could get in, full transparency, I'm from the West Coast, went to school in the Northeast, and I have 5 teams in my college football playoff from the SEC. You could probably make a case for like 6 or 7 having a more than halfway decent shot to get in. Like, I left Missouri out of my college football playoff, and they have a very workable schedule. They could be a team that finds their way in as well. So, like, if we find ourselves in a world where there's 6 of this 12 teams in the college football playoff from the SEC, there will be riots across America. But also, I don't think it's the most unrealistic thing in the world for there to be 6 teams. I'm not predicting it, but where we are in college football right now.
So I know you got a vote. So you were in, I guess it was Dallas. You had Dallas this year for the SEC Media Days. Tennessee came in number 7, I believe. All these preseason stuff are getting in the way of stuff. I think Tennessee 7 or 8 or whatever. Yeah, 7. Where did you vote Tennessee preseason-wise in the SEC? And what do you think about Tennessee finishing or starting there at number 7?
Eric, can I just be super honest with you right now? Just the most honest I can be as we're on this show right now. Didn't vote. Didn't vote. I was like, I think we're doing a segment or we were packing up or whatever. I mean, it just, you know how that can be when things are rock and roll.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't vote. Would have probably put Tennessee, I'm doing like quick math here in my head. I probably would have had them at 5. I think that's probably where I would put them right now in the SEC. Yeah, 5, if not 6. But that's not speaking down to Tennessee. It's like you could finish 5th in the conference and then be a college football playoff team. Like, I think when we look at the schedule, we do our whole, look at where the schedule is in August and do the whole win-loss, which as scientific as that can be, doesn't always play out that way. The 2 games that you circle, obviously, are Georgia and Alabama. I think every other game on Tennessee's roster, or Tennessee's schedule, rather, if Nico translates to who I think everybody believes he can and will be, feels very, very winnable. So I think 10-2 and finding yourself 5th in the conference is by no stretch of the imagination an unfortunate season for Tennessee.
So I don't want to correct me where I'm wrong. I would assume those teams, if you have Tennessee 5th beginning in the SEC this season, those 4 teams in front of them would be Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss.
Yep.
Okay. And you already told me that you don't think Missouri would maybe be in the college football playoff under this, football math exercise we're doing.
Sure.
I am not high on LSU. Where do you have LSU in this kind of pecking order as well? Because I don't get it. A lot of people are so high on LSU. I don't think they'll be horrible, but LSU loses a Heisman Trophy quarterback, loses first-round talent at the skill, couldn't stop anything on defense despite having a top 10 pick probably in Harold Perkins on the defense side of the football. Where are you on LSU? Because I don't get all of the hype this offseason for the Tigers.
Yeah, I put LSU right behind Tennessee at 6. Probably Missouri behind them at 7. The reason why I'm probably not selling my stock just yet on LSU, I don't have them in the playoff, but I think they're probably a 9-win football team. To me, like as we sit here in August, there's some bet that you're making, I think, on who the head coach is. And we had Brian Kelly on our show, I want to say it was a couple of months ago, and he just came out right. I mean, he came right out and said, like, yeah, year 3 for me is usually pretty good. And so, again, using football math, which is not always the most what's the right word? Doesn't always add up correctly.
Yeah.
Year 3 for him. His 3rd year at Cincinnati, they went to a BCS Bowl. His 3rd year at Notre Dame, they played for a national title. And so I think with this being more of a Brian Kelly football team, by the way they do things, by the way they keep the locker room, by their culture, all those things, I think that's going to bode well for them. I'm with you. I think that defense is still probably a year or 2 away from being back to what they expected to be. I love what they did going out and getting Blake Baker from Missouri. I think that was the exact right move. I like LSU. I don't love them enough to have them in the playoff right now.
Yeah, I think getting Blake Baker back, because memory serves me right, he was the linebackers coach, went to Missouri, D.C., and then now is back at LSU. So, yeah, I think that was a really, really good move. I think he's a good coordinator. Okay, so looking at Tennessee specifically, let's look at a little bit of that schedule. You mentioned the 2 games you circle. Obviously, Tennessee fans have them circle too. Alabama and Georgia. Let's start week 2, NC State. I have been on the record saying I think Tennessee wins that game by 2 scores. Doesn't necessarily mean I don't mean NC State's going to be bad, and I think Tennessee's going to control that game and then maybe punch in a late touchdown to make the score look a little bit bigger than what it is. But I like Tennessee's, obviously, the defensive line getting after it. I like the ability to keep Grayson McCall corralled. I just think Tennessee's got a much, much better roster. Playing on a neutral site field that I think Tennessee's going to overtake and have more fans there. What do you like about that game? And I would assume you got Tennessee winning that game as well.
Got Tennessee winning that game. I like the fact that game's early in the year for Tennessee, because if you were to get them a little bit later and maybe Grayson McCall and Robert and I have kind of gotten the lab a little bit, they kind of got a little rhythm, catch them still early enough to where maybe they're still gelling, they're still meshing. Probably the same thing can be said for that defense. The thing that makes me concerned is kind of what we said about LSU is the same thing about NC State. Like the head coach for NC State, Dave Doeren, doesn't really matter who they have on the roster, seemingly. Like every single year, they are just tough defensively, going to run the football. Like they're going to kind of have the same sort of DNA, if you will. So the fact they get them early in the year before they catch their stride, I like. That game, and I know we're probably going to get to it, but Oklahoma, those two to me are the ones where you try and build the confidence, build the momentum, and from there you're off and running. But I do have Tennessee beating NC State, and I think that's going to be a massive, massive like notch in the belt for Nico and say, okay, it's a good team. That's typically a well-coached and pretty solid defense historically. Like, okay, that's a nice rep to have under our belt as we move into the rest of the season.
Yeah, I love that game being in week 2. Because again, I think it's a game Tennessee will win, but it's going to be a really good challenge, really good test. I think it's very much like a Pitt game in 2022, 2021, those seasons. Yeah. Plus, it gets you on the road. It's not a true road game, but it does get you on the road, kind of out, experiencing what a game like away from Neyland Stadium. You're a football player, the schedules, the Friday nights. I mean, it's all, creatures of habit. It's all different when you go away and you're playing away from home. So I think that's important. Let's go to that Oklahoma game. I think this is going to be a huge game. It's a toss-up game. Oklahoma probably is going to be favored in this game at home. Right now I've got Tennessee winning this game simply because, Heupel going home, national storylines, I get it. Young quarterback, but a makeshift, that's disrespectful, a new offensive line, for Oklahoma, trying to figure it out, going up against, again, these 13 grown men from Tennessee and James Pierce. I think the line of scrimmage is going to be dominated by Tennessee's defensive line, and that's why I think Tennessee is going to win that game on the road.
No, I mean, you hit it on the head. Like, that was the talking point I was going to say as well, is like if you're a new offensive lineman for Oklahoma, you got Big 27 on the other side coming off the edge. Like, I don't know if you've played any college football 25 just yet, but James Pierce is virtually unblockable in that game. I think it'll kind of be the same tempo in this kind of setting. And also, like you said, with it being on the road and all the juice, like I think that matters. I think that Tennessee will probably have a little bit of an extra edge for Josh Heupel in this spot. And as good as I think Jackson Arnold is going to eventually be at Oklahoma, again, early in the year, still figuring out who they are. It's at home, yes, but I think Tennessee, I'm with you. I think they win. Also, game day has to be there, right?
Yeah,
like all the storylines, like this has to be the game day game, especially if they beat NC State. Game day.
Yeah, and plus it's the first SEC game for Oklahoma. Like you can almost mark that down. The game day is going to be there. Gametime is the place to buy tickets to the events in your area on a safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. Gametime, it takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Sometimes, if you're a procrastinator like me, those tickets get cheaper the closer you get to the event when you go and search for the tickets on the Gametime app. And right now, you download that Gametime app, you put in this promo code LOCKEDONCollege, you're going to receive $20 off your first purchase. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, on the Gametime app, you will be accessible to buying tickets and to these features such as last-minute deals, flash deals where you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals to select seats ahead of time, zone deals, save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seat for you. All-in pricing to where it shows you all the fees up front. No surprise or hidden fees at checkout. And the views of your seats so you know exactly what you're getting for. Plus, this is probably my favorite, the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime's going to credit you 110% of the difference. They've got the most flexible and best customer service in the ticketing industry. So check it on out at the Gametime app. Gametime today. Download that app. Put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. You're going to get $20 off your purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. That's Gametime. I'm not going to go through every single game on the schedule, just hit some of the highlights. I think those 2 games to begin the year are huge for Tennessee, NC State, Oklahoma, obviously. You got an off week, you go to Arkansas. It's never easy on the road in the SEC, but I like Tennessee in that game. Come home. On paper, Tennessee should beat Florida. As we know, Florida's owned this series. I would assume you're going to have Tennessee winning that game, but more than anything, kind of what are your thoughts briefly on what the Gators are this year, and can Napier survive what that schedule is going to be, especially those last 5 games?
Yeah, hey, Eric, if Florida's bad, I'm going down with the ship because I've been saying for a long time, like I think we look at their roster, or maybe we don't look at their roster nearly enough. We look at the schedule and we say, okay, they were 5-7 a year ago. This schedule is absolutely, egregious. There's no way this roster that went 5-7 last year can get it done this year, can they? And I think we look at last year, and honestly, like there were 2 games that made the difference on one play. Like the Arkansas game, they probably would have, should have, could have won. Missouri, which finished as a top 10 team in college football, they had them 4th and 17 to essentially win the game, and they let them up on 4th and 17. So all that's to say is I think maybe the snapshots of Florida from a year ago are giving too much credit as we project them in the future. I really like Graham Mertz. I think with his 6th year in the system, or his 6th year playing college football, 2nd year in the system, that's going to benefit them. I think they have a lot better playmakers than they're being given credit for. They're a lot more experienced now in the secondary. So all that's to say, I think Florida goes 7-5 this year. I do think they lose this game to Tennessee. If you're a Tennessee fan, you're like, thank the Lord this is in Neyland, not in the swamp.
Yeah.
I think Billy Napier sticks around another year at 7-5. I do.
Yeah, I was so down on Graham Mertz entering last season. I talked so much trash. Dude had a great year. I mean, he had a really good year, so good for him.
Sure.
I think he's an example that shows when you put good people around you, maybe that elevates your play, and that certainly did for him. 3rd Saturday in October, Tennessee, Alabama. If things go according to plan for the Vols and for Alabama, I see Tennessee favored in this game at home. I still think that roster is very, very good. Kellen DeBoer, it's a new challenge, but all he does is win, and his offense has proved that it can win. Can it do it in the SEC? What do you like about this game, and what do you what do you look forward to in this matchup, Tennessee and Alabama?
This is going to be a lot of fun because it'll be potential. I mean, I guess we'll see where Alabama is after Georgia, but looking at this offense and what they could be, with how potent they could be with Jalen Milroe and what I think he's going to be in 2024, we could be in for a shootout here, Eric. Like we could be looking at the over and licking our chops and saying, oh yeah, we'll take the over 64.5 or whatever it ends up being when it comes to kick. So I'm excited for the points. I'm excited for what should be a battle between 2 really talented quarterbacks and 2 great play callers. And I guess Kalen DeBoer may or may not be calling plays at this point. We'll see. But it'll be his offense essentially is my point there. I think Alabama from a roster level is going to be able to control the game enough with how they're going to run the football at Alabama. And that's not to say anything of Tennessee's defense, not to say anything of what Tennessee will do answering scores. I picked against Kalen DeBoer all year last year, Eric. So as we sit here in August, I'm going to go ahead and pick him right now in this game. Again, it's not anything to say of Tennessee. It's nothing down on Nico. I just think that that offense and the way they'll be able to control it in certain spots of the game will ultimately lean Alabama right now.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what these 2 teams look like at this point in the season. I can't wait to see what Nico looks like in this offense and where Tennessee is. Again, if all goes according to plan, Tennessee will be the home favorite. I'm just intrigued to see what it looks like. If Tennessee takes advantage of those games at the top of the schedule, NC State, Oklahoma, like I think that they will, don't have a hiccup at Arkansas, beats Florida at home, and brings back into Alabama. Even if you lose that game to Alabama, as long as you take care of business against Kentucky and State and Vandy, you can you can afford to lose a game on the road to Georgia and likely still be in the college football playoff. Let's go to Georgia. Full transparency, it's honesty hour. You were honest earlier. I'm going to be honest now. I have spent 0 minutes talking about Tennessee, Georgia this offseason. I just haven't. It's at the end of the schedule.
Totally
There's so much unknowns. Georgia's the best team in college football right now. So let's talk about it a little bit right now. That matchup, again, there's just so much we don't know right now. But Tennessee, what we know right now. Georgia, what we know right now. Can the Vols go into Athens and win that football game?
I don't think so. The thing with me is the way that Tennessee operates offensively, and you know this, Eric, and your audience knows this, but the way that they spread you out, they do a really good job of creating those one-on-one matchups when they got the splits way all the way out to the sideline and we got one-on-one with a corner. 9 times out of 10, like with this receiving core, you feel pretty good about your odds there. I think with Georgia, their skill level in the secondary is going to be able to kind of maybe not negate that, but minimize that. And then the way that Georgia operates up front and the multiple attacks they'll have, I think, offensively with Carson Beck, with it being in Athens, that kind of takes the cake for me with them in this game. But I mean, 10-2, like you mentioned, I think that more than puts you into the position where you should expect to be in the college football playoff on Selection Sunday. And I think that's nothing to sneeze at if you're a Tennessee fan.
Yeah, I mean, you 10-2, losing to Alabama, or say those 2 losses are to Alabama, Georgia. You hate that you lost to Alabama, Georgia, but 10-2, you take it. I mean, you take it for sure. Yeah. JD, got a couple questions, a couple quick hitters for you. I've already kept you over the time limit.
No, I love it. I love it.
Give me your top 3 quarterbacks in the SEC entering the season. Fully aware that Nico's not going to be in that top 3 right now.
I'll go Carson Beck. I'll go Quinn Ewers. I'll go Jackson Dart. I think those 3 probably project, I believe, to be the best 3. We'll see if that ends up being the case at the end of the year. But I mean, Quinn Ewers going into his 3rd year, Jackson Dart going into his 2nd year, and then Carson Beck going into his 2nd year as the guy. Like, I think the experience factor there, and also the weapons for all of those guys, that to me is kind of the end all be all, if you will, like all the things around them to make them successful, as well as the experience. So, I mean, you could probably have a conversation around Ewers over Beck or Dart over Ewers or whatever, but to me, I think that's the 3 I'd go with, and feel pretty confident about the floor for all those guys too being really, really high.
Milroe number 4 for you?
Milroe number 4. Y'all, I think Milroe is going to be a Heisman finalist, man, which is funny. I have him at 4 outside of that top 3, but like, I think what he's going to be for Alabama and that Kalen DeBoer offense is going to be nothing short of explosive. So some of it to me is like, I need to see a little more to believe it in terms of like what he's going to be consistently throwing the football. But he could absolutely be in that top 3 when it comes to the end of the season.
I would imagine that probably your top pass rusher in the SEC would be James Pierce. If not, who would, or at least who's in contention with James Pierce there?
I mean, Deion Walker, I know maybe he's not like the pass rusher mold from Kentucky, but like
he's a unit though. He's
a big boy, man. Yeah. We saw him at media days. That is a bad dude coming off the edge. I think honestly, this is one that we haven't talked about quite as much just because we haven't figured out how they're going to use him. But I just got a feeling that Harold Perkins, man, it has to come back into the fold at some point for LSU, right? Like I think with Blake Baker, with the way that they rushed the passer at Missouri a season ago and the way that they were just playing aggressive football, I have a very difficult time believing that Blake Baker is drawing up this defense, looking at number 4 and saying, you know what? Yeah, let's make sure we drop him. We go Tampa 2. Let's make sure we put him back in the pass coverage. I don't think that's going to be the case for him. And if it is the case, I don't think it'll be the case for very long. Harold Perkins, I think, has to be in this discussion as well when it comes to pass rushers.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, again, my job is to cover Tennessee football, know everything about Tennessee football. So I watch college football. I watch SEC football. I don't watch every single game LSU plays, but every time I tuned in, I'm like, what are they doing with Harold Perkins? Like,
right.
like you have a gem, use his skill sets, cater to your player. It's like, dude's going to be a first-round pick next year. Like, made no sense to me last year.
Top 2 running backs. Over. Oh, sorry, I stopped you, Eric. I was going to say Mykel Williams. I'd be remiss if I didn't at least say his name in answering that question. Also going to be, I think, a really high draft pick when it's his time.
Top 2 running backs.
Top 2 running backs in the conference?
Yeah, conference.
Man, it's tough because I probably would have said C.J. Baxter. I probably would have had him in this discussion. Top 2 running backs in the SEC. I think Trevor Etienne, the transfer from Florida over to Georgia now, which, I mean, I don't know what, like, legally you have to do to transfer from a rival to another rival. I'm sure there's probably some stuff that's outside of the NCAA's control that you have to do there. So I'd probably put him in the mix. I think he's going to have a huge year. And outside of him, see, this is tough. I'm for sure just going to miss somebody. Let's see. I would probably go with. Now I'm going through like all the SEC teams here. I'm trying to think who else is even in the mix outside of him. I think Montreal Johnson's going to be good. I hope he gets healthy soon. Dylan Sampson can make a case for.
And then we don't know about what's his name? Carroll? Michael Carroll?
Yeah, the Missouri transfer. Yeah, he could be a guy.
We just don't know yet because he's coming up from Tulane. So,
you know what? I'll go ETN, and then maybe we'll throw Ulysses Bentley in there.
Okay,
and a guy from Ole Miss who I think is going to have a much larger load, obviously, with Quinshawn Judkins out of the fold. I'll go those 2, knowing all the while we're going to get off the show and I'll be like, how did I not think of, you know what I mean? So it'll be one of those, but I'll go with those two right now to project to be the best.
Last question, we'll end on this, man. And we know that you're high on Tennessee. You've been high on Tennessee. You think Tennessee is going to be a playoff team, 10 wins. You're high on Nico. So hopefully all these things come together, and it's an exciting season covering the Vols. Who do you think is going to be Tennessee's, maybe not best is the right word, maybe most impactful transfer? Lance Hurd's going to be your starting left tackle. Chris Brazzell's going to be on the outside. You got a couple of tight ends who are going to play a lot. Jamal McCoy, I think, is going to be a stud at cornerback. Who do you think is going to be the most impactful transfer for Tennessee this year?
It feels kind of like a cop-out answer, but I'll go Chris Brazzell just because, I mean, you and I got to be out there at spring practice, and like just seeing the way that dude moves at that size and the way he can high point the football. I mean, having that many options in the pass game now for Nico, if you want to give him single coverage, like, be my guest, but I think he's probably going to moss you. So I think Chris Brazzell will be extremely productive. I know it's his first year in the system, but even so, like, I think he's going to be a guy that has a massive year out here in Knoxville. So I'm excited for that.
JD, I kept you about 10 minutes longer than I said I was going to, so I appreciate
it felt like 5 minutes, brother. So don't even stress.
Guys, gals, when I'm talking to you right now, if you're listening, if you're watching, I promise you, JD does incredible work. His videos, he does those live shows he talked about earlier, posts videos all the time on X, and check out his work on the On3 main page, on3sports.com. JD is one of the fastest rising media personalities in terms of college football in the country. Give him a follow, check out his work. JD, as always, man, I appreciate you.
Man, I appreciate you, Eric. Thanks again.
Really great conversation with On3 Sports, JD PicKell. Appreciate him for stopping by and being a part of the show, taking up a big old chunk of our Friday show. Hope you guys enjoyed that, talking a little Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava, how he's huge on the Volunteers and kind of working through that schedule. Really gotten to know JD, and I appreciate his friendship, and I'm thankful that he came on the show today, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Had a fun week. We're going to have a great week next week. Great start to the week, in my opinion, if you know, you know. And we got a lot of things to discuss on a Monday show. News and notes from Tennessee over the weekend. We'll be at a Saturday practice and media. Some things in recruiting to hit on over the weekend, hopefully. And so we're going to have a lot of the things to get into here on a Monday show. As Tennessee moves into mock game week next week and kickoff, well, it'll be 2 weeks from Friday. So 2 weeks from Saturday. So can't wait for some Tennessee football time. And, hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you guys so much for being here, making Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch. Tell your friends about this show. Make Locked On SEC, Locked On College Football your second and third listen here today. You everydayers, appreciate you for stopping by and making this a part of your morning routine. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. This is Locked On Vols.